As students, musicians are narrowly focused on being successful and seem to be focused too much on what juries think. And how do you define success for students as musicians? Are there particular traits or qualities beyond technical skills that juries are seeking when evaluating a student?
Oh, yes, for sure. Especially, I would say, for graduate students. For undergraduate students, somebody auditioning for undergraduate school, uh, we're, we're looking for somebody, of course, who's had very good basic and good teaching, but it's more on choosing on potential, who we feel probably could develop into a really great player. But by the time you audition for graduate school, I think you've had a number of years, maybe 4 years of undergrad, plus of course all the previous years. That somebody who has a musical, how should I say, a musical intent. It doesn't have to be the way we think about it, but we want somebody who has ideas, and it goes beyond the instrument, So I mean, when you have to play different styles of pieces for auditions. So of course, if you play Baroque music, being aware of that, vibrato was not used that much in Baroque music, but clarity of articulation is an important thing. The same thing in Mozart. And then, of course, when you get into music of the 19th century, where rubato is very much part of the music, although it's not written in the music, but it's part of it. Whether you think Schumann or Reinecke or music like that, and then, of course, the 20th century, where especially in French music, where sound colors are extremely important. So one, and that also applies to orchestra auditions. I think that I always thought that somebody playing either an orchestra audition or a recital with pieces of different periods should sound like a different player.
Yeah.
It's like having a different personality. I mean, you don't approach Bach with this, the same way you approach 20th century or romantic music. There should be a difference,
Yeah.
different in style and vibrato and approach in general. And that's one of the things in orchestra that is interesting, because we play so much varied repertoire that even sometimes in the same program, one can have a different approach, a different way of playing. And I find that interesting.
What is your advice to students as they progress further in their musical career and transition from being students to professionals?
Well, I mean, one thing that's important is that we all have to become our own teachers. When you start, of course, your teacher tells you how to do things, but as you get older, and certainly, I would say at least at the graduate level, if not before, but for sure at the graduate level, people should start working by themselves. And I think one thing that can help is record yourself.
Yeah.
I remember one of my teachers telling me that the tape recorder at the time, it was a tape recorder, he said would be your best teacher. And that's how I prepared orchestra auditions. And you can do the same thing when you're practicing at home. I mean, you see your teacher maybe once a week, but the rest of the time you're on your own. So if you record yourself, you'll hear things, and then you'll start figuring out how to change, how you can correct whatever it is you don't like. I mean, because people can tell. I mean, it's always easier to listen to other people and criticize, because when you're playing, you're busy playing, and but if you listen to a recording of yourself while you're practicing, it's like sitting in the audience and listening to somebody else. And I think that's a very helpful thing. I mean, it can be about anything. It can be about intonation. It can be about dynamics. It can be about articulation. It can be anything you want. Because sometimes you may think, and I remember when I was recording myself, I would listen and I would think, oh, I thought I was playing softer here, and I was not hearing it on the recording. And you realize that you have to exaggerate in order for it to be perceived by others. I mean, you may think that you're doing it, but or articulation, same thing. If you play it's the same note that's repeated, and sometimes very often it sounds almost as if it's slurred because the articulation is not clear enough.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that you can, or if, in the summer when you're on your own, if you're for a few months without lessons or something. So I think that's something that you can develop. And then by doing that, as I was saying earlier, you start becoming your own teacher, and that's what you do when you teach other students. So it's a very gradual process. It's something that may take a few years, but I certainly encourage people to do that.